discussing this morning what is the topic that's sweeping the nation and the globe at large after COVID that has to do with the brain? Well, after my favorite segment, Psyched to Know, we'll have a discussion on that.
Psyched to Know, brought to you by Sule Joseph and Associates. There are many types of dementia, but Alzheimer's disease is the most common. The next most common is vascular dementia. There are 55 million people living with dementia around the globe. It is estimated that this number will rise to 139 million by 2050.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Welcome back to Psych. I'm your host, Sule A. Joseph. Joining me this morning is a very important and special guest who's coming to have a conversation and make what could be a very complex topic, an easy one to understand. Joining me this morning is Dr. Maraj. Dr. Maraj, good morning.
How are you doing, Sule?
I am well. Thanks for being with us this morning. And of course, the topic that we're going to discuss this morning, we're having a conversation on dementia. What is dementia?
All right. That's a complex one to pull there, but to understand what dementia is, you really need to first understand how the brain works. And the brain is a very, very complex organ. It has very, very many important functions, such as controlling our movement, perceiving the external environment through our senses such as smell, taste, touch, vision, and hearing. But the thinking aspects of our brain, that is the cognitive aspects, such as the storing of memories, planning of activities, controlling our behavior, those are the supremely complex aspects of our brain. And it is in dementia, these cognitive aspects or the thinking aspects of our brain become troublesome, leading to trouble with memory, difficulty with carrying out tasks, trouble with behavior to the extent that they affect the functioning of our daily activities?
Well, some may say I tend to be forgetful at times. In my teenage years, I was troublesome. Does that mean I have dementia? Does anybody who has behavioral issues and issues with memory of viewers at home who might forget a thing or two, does that mean they have dementia?
That is a very good and important point to put there. And no, simple little things are not dementia. It is a conglomeration of many little things that add up together. So for example, forgetting your keys, not sure if you left the door open or closed, those are a problem with not necessarily the memory aspect of us, but attention, so that we don't store those little things into long-term memory, so that we can't remember those things. And that's really a problem with attention more than memory and cognition. Okay. So it's when you have multiple issues with memory to the extent that they affect your daily functioning and the ability. So that would be ability to carry out your job, your roles in life, such as doing shopping, paying your bills, taking care of your family, taking care of your responsibilities at work. When your cognitive abilities are affected to that extent, you would potentially label someone as having dementia.
Right. So then we won't often see a teenaged person or younger persons then suffering with all of these aspects that lead up to all of these symptoms that lead up to the diagnosis of dementia. Is that something we're saying?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia based on basically what happens in the brain to cause dementia. Dementia usually happens, especially, so there are many subtypes of dementia. The most common one is Alzheimer's, and that's more common with the above 65 age category. The other type of dementia is something called frontotemporal dementia, like Bruce Willis had that recently. That's more common in males from about like 45. But the teenage years, it's very, very uncommon unless you have certain very, very abnormalities of genetics that could cause dementias in maybe the 20s or the 30s. But that is vanishingly rare.
Okay. So we know that, therefore, there are aspects or there are different types of dementia, as you mentioned. Bruce Willis, which has been a recent conversation and topic, information that has come to us recently, has a certain type. But then you are saying for us, usually it comes at a certain age. So then is this natural progression? Are we all doomed at some point to start experiencing through age some level of dementia?
That is a good question. And as far as it's known right now, no, not everybody is going to get dementia. Particularly Alzheimer's is due to accumulation of an abnormal protein in your brain, which causes the nerves that are important with memory and cognition to give trouble, leading to your symptoms. Patients who don't have this abnormal protein don't get Alzheimer's and don't develop dementia. There's a really good program on Netflix right now. I think chips or something like that, where they take about populations in 4 to 6 different places, and these people live up to like 90s, up to 100, and they have no evidence of dementia, no trouble at all. So you can have populations of people living to very, very elderly ages without having any trouble with their memory.
Okay. If I were to start experiencing, or perhaps somebody in my immediate vicinity started experiencing dementia-like symptoms, how could I recognize? If it were me, for myself, how would I recognize for myself? And then how could I recognize perhaps for others? There's somebody around me, maybe starting to get a little forgetful. How we know that's just not regular age-related things, and it may now be symptoms of dementia that we should start paying attention to?
You want to look out for like red flag things that are trouble when somebody's forgetful. Right. For example, leaving the stove on, leaving the door opened, and keeping it unlocked, especially in the troublesome times that we live in Trinidad. Leaving the car on when they finish driving. Lots of patients also have changes in their behavior. So, for example, people will be a specific way their entire life, like maybe reserved, not outgoing, more introverted. And then over a couple of months, people notice that they become a bit more outgoing, more reckless, certain types of behavioral changes that are uncommon. Those are things to look out for.
So reckless, uncommon behaviors, maybe forgetful behaviors that may also lead to some level of danger, forgetting stove on, leaving your door open. Those are some potentially dangerous type behaviors.
Not paying your bills twice sometimes. That's something a lot of people tend to have in Trinidad for some strange reason.
Paying their bills twice?
Yeah.
Oh.
So
well, none of my clients do that, but all right.
Usually that happens to some family members come and tell me, Doc, this person went and paid the ICNTT bill twice this month. I was like, that's not necessary. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. So then that's a very good one to pay attention to, because in an ordinary state, I can't see any Trinidadian paying any bill twice.
I completely agree. Completely agree. So whenever that happens to me, I'll be like, something's a bit awry here.
Yeah, so that's when time to start to pay attention when things like that start happening. That's an excellent one, guys. At home, pay attention to that. Persons paying bills twice and so on. I'm aware of a particular relative, actually, who it has been difficult to get that relative to stop driving. Right? They would leave the house and forget where they're going. Regularly getting in little scrapes and so on, little accidental rub down the vehicle thing, bounce down the gate, leaving home, that kind of thing, right? And then when you try to have the conversation with that person, it's either they make it it's not a big thing, or they barely even remember the incident in itself. Would you describe that as some issues that fall in the camp of dementia-like symptoms?
Fantastic point. So I just raised that. Part of the thinking mechanism of our brain involves something called visuospatial awareness, and that's kind of understanding the map in your brain, so you know where you're going. So people who've been driving their entire lives, they have a visual representation of where Trinidad is, what's going on in the areas. People with dementia, as things get a bit worse, they find themselves driving and then they become confused all of a sudden where they are. Right. And they forget where they're going, or forget where they are, or forget how they got there. And that could lead exactly to what you said. Scrapes, accidents, trouble in the road. That is a big red flag also.
Okay. Excellent. So guys at home, if you or any relative start experiencing some of these, then perhaps you need to start paying closer attention. Maybe you need to hobble down and visit Dr. Maraj and have a conversation. All right? Now, we've established what it is. We've established the categories. We've even talked about some signs to recognize and so on.
Yeah.
But before we get to what do I do, is there anything that can be done to reduce the proteins? Could I drink less milk? Could I exercise more frequently, read more books? Is there something that can be done? Could we do something as a society to help reduce that protein that perhaps might be genetic? I don't know.
Good question, because everybody whose relatives have dementia ask me this question, because it's a frightening thing to look at your family member suffering with this thing and wondering, could this happen to me?
Correct. And a shell of their former selves, because you know them as their functioning self and so on, energetic, and now becoming a shell of themselves. It's very frightening.
Very much so. So, one is, the general thing is to live a fairly happy life. In terms of a fairly healthy life, my apologies. In terms of if you have any medical conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, control those things, because those disorders lead to reduced blood flow to the brain and can damage the brain, bringing on certain types of dementia, such as the mixed dementias or the dementias due to little strokes in the brain.
Well, that explains so much, because I do see a lot of persons who come to me with relatives with dementia having comorbidities like diabetes, for example. So a lot of persons have diabetes or diabetic symptoms, also suffering with dementia-type symptoms as well.
Correct. Not smoking. If you don't smoke, don't start. And if you are a smoker currently, should quit, because that also reduces the blood flow to the brain and can cause things like dementias.
Okay. When you say smoke here, are we talking about
smoking cigarettes? Smoking cigarettes.
Smoking. All right. Okay. Well, I don't know. As an honorary Rasta man, I have to ask for the community. Is it specifically cigarettes or smoking anything? And okay.
The studies are mostly with cigarettes. I don't have a lot of information from the non-cigarette smoking populace. So, yeah. Alcohol is a big one, because chronic alcohol consumption in excess leads to damage to your brain and shrinkage, which could contribute to dementias.
Okay. So if you may be experiencing, or maybe perhaps if you have family members who are, which puts you at risk, these are some of the things you probably ought not do or reduce doing if you're trying to avoid experiencing potential dementia in the future. Smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, reducing maybe sugar intake if you're diabetic, and so on. Yeah. Living a more healthy life, just generally.
Correct. And so there's like things like potentially, so and another big one that we don't pay much attention to is having good social support networks and keeping yourself socially engaged with people. So there was a marked uptick in dementia-associated illnesses after COVID, where people did not have that level of socialization, especially elderly, given we were trying to do what's best for them to try and not let them catch COVID and become ill with it. Right. But it led to a reduction in their socialization, and it contributed to a vast increase in the amount of dementias.
Well, that's an excellent springboard, because we're talking about how persons can avoid perhaps as much as possible, right? But I feel like that last point could also be used for the next question, which is, if persons are already experiencing dementia symptoms, definitely that support network, if persons are experiencing, what are some of the things they can do? And the last point you made about support networks, I think, is an excellent place to start, where you're talking about having engaging support and not having somebody who may be experiencing dementia be by themselves. I can only see it worsening, being by themselves, watching TV all day kind of thing, just sitting there and not functioning the way they used to. What else can persons do if you have a relative, or perhaps you yourself might be functioning with dementia? What can you do if you're already in the space? Not just trying to avoid it now, but just trying to manage it.
One, all the things that we stated previously about trying to prevent it does slow down the progression. So healthy diet, no smoking, reduction in the amount of alcohol. So for males, it's about 2 drinks a day. They're allowed, and females, it's about 1 drink a day. But you can't drink all 14 drinks in one day, and that's called no. That's binge drinking is actually worse than chronic drinking.
So you're saying that people can't save up for Carnival or Christmas. So you can't save up all your drinks for Christmas and take your 15 drinks on Christmas Day or Carnival Monday. You have to spread it out.
As much as we want to, it don't work like that, and you just get more licks. So, unfortunately.
You're bringing bad news.
They don't like me for that, but that's be the honest one. Right. So those are the things you can do to try and prevent it from progressing. Keeping socially engaged as before, and keeping mentally engaged. So trying to retire at a later age if your job keeps you mentally engaged.
That is something I wanted. Dr. Raj, I want to stress on this point, because I see often for some reason, I'm getting a lot of older clients of recent vintage are coming out of COVID. Right? And one of the things I've seen is that when persons retire, they start looking older sooner. As if, so you spent 40 years or so working, or 30-something plus years, 33 years working, and as soon as you stop that actively engaging your brain in that process, it's almost as though the brain just, a switch is hit, and then the person starts aging rapidly. You start experiencing some of these more, these symptomologies that may go alongside things like dementia and age-related mental illnesses. What can persons do? Do they not retire? Do you work until your deathbed? What can persons do in relation to that?
I can't say what everybody can do, but there's always this thing that people keep saying, that you have to prepare for your retirement.
Right.
So that when you do retire, you're not just at home aimless without something to do. And a lot of people, their jobs are their identity. It's something that gives them purpose. It gives them focus. It gives them a sense of well-being. It gives them a place where they're respected. And losing that does have a lot of mental health connotations, as you would obviously have interacted with your clients. And those negative mood challenges that would come from their mental health can impact on their memory and their cognition, and can accelerate the dementias indeed. So they just need to plan for their retirement a bit better. I don't know what are the resources really for that. I know I planned it from all now, so when it does happen, it doesn't hit me like a ton of bricks.
Right.
But definitely I see a lot of people doing. They're keeping mentally engaged when they retire. So they're keeping social. They try to do a bit of consultancy if they're still doing that. Some people go and volunteer to keep themselves.
Volunteer, correct? Yes, that's something I was thinking. Right.
Yes, because volunteering definitely, it helps back the society in general. A lot of people try to do a lot of memory puzzles and stuff on their phone, and these memory games and stuff.
That's what I was going to ask. Things like reading and those games, do they actually do they help? Do these things actually keep you active as well?
Reading for pleasure and leisure, in terms of things that can be functional and useful to you, yes. But aimlessly trying to do a lot of memory puzzles and stuff on your phone for an inordinate amount of time just takes away from your life, and hasn't been statistically shown to help with the dementias so far.
Okay.
Spend an hour on your phone trying to play memes and memorize and try to get your brain back on you. That's not what you need to do.
Okay. Well, you debunked something for me, because I didn't even know that. Because, social media would have you believe engaging on social media and engaging in these apps with puzzles and so on supposed to be so great for memory and so great for, engaging thoughts on that level.
So yes, to some extent, but not spending most of your day trying to do those things. That just takes up time that should be spent on doing other potential activities that could be more beneficial there.
All right. Is there anything else that persons can do?
There are, if you do have a definitive diagnosis of dementia,
right,
there are medications that can be taken that that try and retard and slow down the disease process. So some of the medications, you'd hear the name is something called donepezil. It's also known as Aricept or Palixid or Yasnal, I believe, in Trinidad. They're pretty expensive.
So if I have money, I don't have to stop drinking. I could just take tablets, right? I don't have to give up the smoking. I don't have to give up the liming. I don't have to give up the, I have age. I have some money put away, my pension and thing. I could continue drinking and just take the tablets.
The answer to that is no, because the tablets are not very good at slowing down the dementia. It only works for very mild dementias, and it works to a very small extent as well. So it's definitely not the elixir of life
These, as doctors, you'll always come with these bad news. I don't know. You just have to say it. So now people who have to switch from beers to carrots and just stop smoking a cigarette and go and walk outside.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, I do.
Thank you very much for being with us here today, this morning, Dr. Maraj. In closing, if there's one thing you'd want to leave us with, those persons at home who may be suffering with dementia or may have relatives suffering with dementia, what is one thing you'd want to leave them with? One bit of information.
One piece of information, a really good one, is that while a complete cure for dementia remains like elusive, advancements in research and care are continuing on, and they've been led to various treatment approaches that can be aimed at managing the symptoms and managing the disease. And hopefully, with the amount of money that's being spent by the first world countries on trying to get dementia under control, we should potentially have a cure for it maybe within the next 10, 15 years. With things like AI and all those other important things that are coming out now, who knows? The future is a lot brighter.
So I'll take that the future is a lot brighter, and within 10 to 15 years, we're looking at maybe major leaps in dementia. So it's not over. There's not all gloom and doom.
No, thankfully it isn't.
And when you talk about first world nations working assiduously and working hard at finding cures, I'm going to assume that Trinidad falls in that category. And I'm not going to have that argument. I'm just going to assume that Trinidad falls in that category of first world nation working on medical problems.
We are. We're trying to establish things like a dementia registry. I think we have a Alzheimer's Association of Trinidad and Tobago.
We do, yes.
Yeah. Earlier this year, there were some talks about having a national policy on dementia. I had to attend some forum on it. So yes, we are making our contribution as a country.
Well, I was hoping, but great. Good to know that I've landed spot on that we're doing our bit. Now, for persons who may want to get in contact with you for further information, for assessments, for medical diagnoses, and so on, how can they do that?
We have a phone contact information. It's 367-9368, 367-9368. The easiest thing to do is to send a WhatsApp message, or we also have a website. It's www.synapsemedicaltt.com, synapsemedicaltt.com.
All right. Excellent. So they can reach you by phone or by website.
And also social media, Facebook and Instagram, the same thing, Synapse Medical TT.
All right. Well, as soon as this interview is over, I will be searching for you on social media, and I'll give it a like and add. Thank you so very much. Thanks much for joining us. And for you viewers at home, we've shared a lot of information. Remember, there's a brighter future ahead. All is not lost. Until next week, please God, same time, same place, right here on WESN. Stay psyched.
WESN.
I'm Keaton Shaw, and we are WESN, the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing nowadays.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinidad
Begonian who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Psyched, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former Mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas, and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
My name is Carl Media. I am the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
in connection with a recent ban on Hamas activities. Germany's domestic intelligence service estimates that Hamas has something like 450 members in the country. Caroline Lamboulay has sent us this report.
A quiet street in Berlin, waking up to raids by police officers. They were searching for evidence and assets linked to alleged members and supporters of Hamas, as well as the Palestinian advocacy network Samedun. The German Interior Minister said the raids aimed to further investigate the two groups.
We're continuing our consistent action against radical Islamists. Islamists and anti-Semites cannot and must not feel safe anywhere here.
It's unclear what exactly was uncovered during the raids, which started at 6 a.m. A total of 15 properties were searched, most of them in Berlin. The raids come following a formal ban on the two organizations issued in early November. Germany had already designated Hamas as a terrorist group. And following Hamas's October 7 operation in southern Israel, the German authorities announced they would also crack down on Samedun. This after the group, which translates to steadfast in Arabic, posted photos on Instagram showing pro-Palestinian activists distributing pastries in the streets of Berlin in celebration of Hamas's Al-Aqsa flood operation. The group has expressed its outrage at the ban, which it said was seeking to criminalize speaking out against the current war, organizing, and expressing support for the Palestinians.
Now, he's been called the Dutch Donald Trump, a politician convicted of insulting Muslims and once banned from entering the United Kingdom because of his Islamophobic views. But now Geert Wilders could become the Netherlands' next Prime Minister. This after winning a dramatic victory in Wednesday's general election. Well, let's go to Rotterdam on the programme now. Our correspondent Fernand van Tetz is covering the story for us, and she's with me right now. Fernand, first of all, just give us an overview, if you can, of the politics of Geert Wilders.
So you mentioned already his strong anti-Islamic views. I mean, he wants to ban the Quran, he wants no more new mosques. He wants no more immigrants from Muslim countries. Now, these extreme viewpoints, he has said that he will park them in the fridge or on the back burner, so to speak, during this campaign, which has made him more palatable to voters, it seems. But again, he repeated those claims of zero migration. He says, you know, we have a shortage of housing here. It's the Netherlands first. He's really taking on that US slogan as well. Dutch people should come first. I mean, and there's other parts of his program which are very worrying, especially if you look for Europe. I mean, he's in favor of Nexit. He wants to organize a referendum for the Netherlands to leave the EU. And he's also against all military aid for Ukraine. And he's had close ties to Russia in the past as well. So that's something that's worrying as well. Now, of course, these instincts will have to be tempered by whoever he forms a coalition with. There's also some people are saying, you know, well, yes, he says that, but, you know, he'll need to form a coalition, so he'll have to water that down. But that's not sure. And white in his party program, so we'll have to see how much of a back burner these ideas will really take.
Fernand, the sound connection isn't great, but we do want to hear from you exactly on that. Just give us a sense briefly of some of the challenges that Wilders might face now in trying to form a government.
So, of course, this is the Netherlands, so he will need to form a coalition. We have 150 seats. He's got 37 of them. Now, the main candidates that are looking likely for that is the Liberal Conservative VVD. Now, they haven't said anything about that yet. They, of course, were the party that creaked open the door to rule with the PVV for the first time over the summer after Mark Rutte had shut him out for many years. However, they're now currently meeting and still deciding whether they are open to joining a coalition with Geert Wilders. Previously, their new leader, Dylan Yazilgus, had said she would not join the coalition with Wilders as PM. So we'll have to see if she backtracks on that. The only party so far that has come out outright that they want to do this is the Farmer Citizens Movement. Now, their straight-talking front woman shot to prominence at the provincial elections in March, meaning she controls a large number of seats in the Senate, but she only has 7 seats, so he'll really need more than that. The other party that is a possibility is New Social Contract, the party of Pieter Omtzigt, MP, who started his own party just 3 months ago, but won 20 seats as a new centrist party. He said he's open to the idea, but he has criticized in the past Wilders' anti-constitutional tendencies and says he can't work with that. So it's really up to the VVD now to see if they are really open to working with Wilders. Of course, Wilders this morning celebrating, saying he wants to be Prime Minister. He says he can be a Prime Minister for all of the Netherlands. But of course, many Muslim groups are very worried about what this victory means and what their place will be in this country going forward.
Fernand van Tets in Rotterdam, thanks very much indeed. And thanks to you, our viewers, for bearing with us with some of our sound problems there. We're going to take a break on the programme now, but do stay with us. More world news and analysis to come very shortly here on France 24.
Hello and welcome to People in Profit. I'm Charles Pellegrin. In the show this week, combining the powers of live streaming and e-commerce and bringing them to Europe, we'll meet Whatnot, the US company trying to make it big with Shopatainment. We'll head to the birthplace of e-commerce live streaming, China, where influencers have become the face of retail and marketing. And we'll look at the environmental toll of these consumerist habits and the movements that are trying to change our way of life. Well, as we approach the end of year and the holiday shopping season, retailers in most parts of the world are ramping up promotions and offers to entice buyers, especially online. The global e-commerce market in 2023 is expected to reach $6.3 trillion. By next year, 21% of total retail sales will be made digitally. And increasingly, these sales are taking place on social media platforms, reaching over $900 billion this year. Well, one U.S. company is trying to capitalize on this trend. Whatnot was founded in 2019 in California and is a platform that aims to connect buyers and sellers via video live streaming. The quote-unquote Shopatainment app is worth $3.7 billion. And Armand Wilson, the VP of Categories and Expansion at Whatnot, joins us now. Thank you very much for speaking to France 24. I'd like to start with one question. How do you drive people to use your platform as opposed to, for example, more widely used platforms like Instagram or Facebook that have their own stores and marketplaces?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And it's a good question. So I think we've seen tremendous growth. And I think a lot of what has driven that has been a combination of really just people kind of shifting from what they traditionally buying and selling and going to a store and brick and mortar and moving that to online. So we've obviously seen e-commerce take off. But I think what's missing in that process, that buying experience, is really just connectivity and community. And I think what you see on Whatnot is if you enter a stream, you'll see it's not very uncommon to just enter a live stream and someone to announce you by name and show you a new show you a product that they've been saving for you. And I think that like intimacy and that personalization of the shopping experience is really what keeps bringing buyers back and back for more and more, is that we really built a platform that's based off of commerce, based off of community. And I think that's why so many users really flock to the app and stay.
Are you talking about the platform being based on community? A lot of the buyers on Whatnot sell collectible items, sports memorabilia, maybe comic books. What's the advantage of having this kind of niche market? And is the plan in the long term to have virtually any kind of goods that can be sold on the platform?
Yeah, totally. So Whatnot was started, in 2019. It was started by two collectors that were really passionate about collecting. So a lot of the early categories were based on collectibles, and that was because buying collectibles or buying a lot of things online can be a tough experience, right? You can get a lot of fraud. You can buy something, it never shows up. Fake products come in, whatever it may be. It just felt a little stale and soulless. So the reason that Whatnot was really birthed was to take a category like collectibles that you have so many passionate people around purchasing it and just make it a bit more trustworthy, build community around it, and at the end of the day, just make it more fun. And I think what we've seen over time that's gotten us really excited is that's really expanded beyond collectibles into many more mainstream categories. So one of our fastest growing categories is women's fashion, and that's everything from sellers selling handbags to someone selling a Lululemon top, so like everyday type wear clothing. And I think what we're finding is that the power of social commerce, particularly live video, just really allows people to discover new products, and the purchasing experience is just more enjoyable and more fun. So it's really been able to extend beyond collectibles, where we really started in, and move into more mainstream categories like fashion and beauty and arts and crafts are all some of our fastest growing categories today.
And one last thing, purchasing power has been hurt in Europe and in other places by inflation. How would you compare the deals that consumers can get on a platform like Whatnot with what they can get at big name retail brands, for instance?
Yeah, I think a big reason why people love Whatnot is you are able to find deals. There's a ton of deals if you pull up, regardless of whatever you're into, whether it's comic books or Nike trainers. You're able to go and hop into Whatnot, and because what we've seen on like the seller side is there's just so much volume of transactions happening, so you're able to sell products much quicker. So what would take you 100 days on a traditional marketplace, you're able to sell in like a couple-hour live stream. Because of that, sellers are able to sell products for lower prices, and buyers are really able to get deals, all while knowing that through our trust and safety policies, that it's always a safe and clean transaction, and you'll never have a chance to really be frauded throughout that process. So one of the biggest value props I think we have right now is deals, and we know that's something that people are looking for, particularly in Europe, but really in all the markets that we're currently in today.
Well, Armand Wilson is the VP of Categories and Expansion at Whatnot. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, the birthplace of this fusion of social media and e-commerce is China. When it comes to retail, big brands and local stores alike have turned to live streaming to reach out to customers. The trend has boomed since the pandemic, changing the face of marketing and creating new jobs. Yenna Lee and Catherine C. went to meet with budding influencers.
With 44,000 followers, Xiaofeng is one of the biggest food influencers in Tianjin, China's 7th biggest city. Today he's selling discount coupons for a dessert brand. Live streaming apps have replaced home shopping TV channels. A simple studio is enough for sellers to interact with potential buyers.
For example, they ask me, is this enough for one person or two? What do I say at the store? Can I order other items? What's included in this deal? You're basically a real-time customer service and shopping guide.
To keep up with his growing business, Xiaofeng has hired a new streamer. They take it in turns to keep the live video going for up to 12 hours a day.
Hello friends, welcome to the live stream.
Last year, some 450 billion euros worth of goods were sold on live platforms in China, 8 times more than in 2019, the year before the pandemic. And the boom is attracting new entrepreneurs. Taozi quit her job at a major internet company last year to sell vintage jewelry on social media.
I spend a lot of time putting these products up for sale. And when I go live, they go from my shelves to sales in just a few minutes. Which means I have more time to select products, expand my channel, and bring items to everyone.
This summer, one Chinese poll found that 2/3 of surveyed youth were interested in becoming online hosts or influencers.
All this consumption comes at a cost, especially for the planet. For instance, in 2022, the week of Black Friday led to 1.2 million tons of CO2 being released in Europe because of the increase of trucks transporting goods around the continent. That's 94% higher than the average week. People have been mobilized against this around the world. And in France, the Green Friday Collective was created in 2017 to raise awareness about the dangers of consumerism and present alternatives. Well, joining us on set is Tancred Girard, who's communications manager at Refaire, a network of centers and charity shops that aims to encourage the recycling and reuse of consumer goods, and which is also a member of Green Friday as a collective. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's start about talking about big consumer festivals like Black Friday. You actually questioned the fact that consumers actually get a better deal or get a good deal on such an occasion?
Yeah, it's a very important thing to keep in mind. A lot of companies use some techniques that are now illegal in theory in the European Union, which consists of raising the prices beforehand and then dropping them on the day of the Black Friday to pretend it's a big sale. This happens still a lot, and I think there was one year a report that said that the average economy done by consumers is only of 2%. Only 2%, economy did by the consumers in that. So it's really telling how the consumers are really not blessed by the Black Friday. Yeah.
And sales keep growing. It's all a marketing effort, but so is mobilization against consumerism, against overspending. The Green Friday movement started in 2017. It's now 2023. How would you say this movement has evolved?
Well, the movement has very well evolved. There are more and more people, more and more associations and companies which are interested in what we do. And the interesting thing is it started in France for what concerns us, and more specifically around Paris. But it has grown in borders too. We have been joined by Ressources, which is a Belgian movement of charity shops and recycling centers, and it's also gaining a lot of traction around Europe, thanks to the NGO Reuse that has joined us too. And we also see some members in Quebec now, so we see that it's not only growing in size and in numbers of people and companies and associations joining it, but also in the scope, in the territory and the borders concerned by this campaign.
And what about the types of people who ask for your help or advice in these centers around Paris?
Well, it's very diverse. We see people with all kinds of reasons to be interested in what we do. For some, it's purely economical reasons. For others, it's ecological reasons. All people can gather on the idea that waste is something terrible, and there are very positive and very enthusiastic solutions that can help on both fronts. And there's important to keep in mind that it's not a fatality, and you don't have to choose between the planet and your wallet, actually.
And what would you say is the biggest obstacle to more recycling centers being created and to seeing more people choosing used products over brand new ones, for instance? What's the biggest obstacle?
Well, it's really hard to say. Like all things regarding the ecological matters and the planet and biodiversity matters that we try to tackle, we really need some strong political will in this. We have been really helped by some local actors like the Paris city and the Île-de-France region as a whole, but there needs to be more legislative change on that front too. And really, I think, and change on mentality on what it means to how do you tackle these issues, and how, well, the act of sale is not an automatic one, and how you can promote social associations that act on that every day, and they really can help convey the movement and the change.
Tancred Girard, you are the communications manager at Refaire, a network of recycling centers and charity shops in the Paris area. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all for this week. You can watch our previous shows on France24.com or listen by searching People and Profit on the podcast platform of your choice. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Annette Young, the host of the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Join us each week as we talk to and report on those working to boost gender equity. You can catch the show on France 24 and France24.com.
Worldviews. France 24 brings you all the news from hotspots around the world. And France, the Middle East, the Americas, Africa, in Asia. From Europe to Oceania, take a daily trip across borders to keep abreast of all the latest international news. Get exclusive updates from our correspondents around the globe. Our daily reports will take you to all four corners of the world. Every day, watch Worldviews on France 24 and France24.com.
Qatar announces the Hamas-Israel truce will begin tomorrow at 7 a.m. Aid is due to cross into Gaza in the morning before 13 hostages are released in the afternoon. The Israeli government now saying it has a list of those to be freed. Shockwaves in Europe after a huge victory for the far right in Dutch elections. The anti-Islam politician Geert Wilders could be on course for power, but is likely to face significant challenges forming a government.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Fortunate Trinbagonian celebrates a whopping 20 million lotto jackpot win. Opposition Senator Wade Mark calls for transparency on TNT's Dragon gas field project. Shoguna's Chamber of Commerce heads expresses concerns over rise in social media-related crimes. And in regional news, St. Vincent's Prime Minister clarifies no legislative commitments on same-sex marriages rights in international agreement. Now for the details. In a stroke of incredible luck, a resident of Trinidad and Tobago has become an instant multi-millionaire by clinching the lotto jackpot prize of 20 million. The National Lotteries Control Board shared the joyous news on social media, declaring that someone in the nation is having an exceptionally Merry Christmas with the best gift ever, a whopping lottery win. The NLCB's announcement expressed hearty congratulations to the fortunate winner, signifying a life-changing moment for the individual who struck gold in a lottery draw. The NLCB revealed that the jackpot will be reset to 2 million for the upcoming Saturday draw. Opposition Senator Wade Mark has submitted a motion to obtain information regarding the acquisition of natural gas from Venezuela's Dragon gas field and the processing of a portion of this gas supply at the Atlantic LNG plant in Trinidad and Tobago. The matter is set for discussion during the Senate session scheduled for 10 a.m. on Friday, as indicated in the order paper. In his private motion, Senator Wade Mark highlighted that the U.S. government has granted a license permitting Trinidad and Tobago to develop this Dragon field. This development involves an estimated cost of US $100 million, covering the construction of a 17-kilometer pipeline from the Dragon field, located in Venezuelan waters, to the Hibiscus platform in Trinidad and Tobago waters. The motion emphasizes and whereas there are many other issues that remain outstanding in order to bring gas from the Dragon gas field to this country's shores. Baldat Maharaj, the head of the Shoguna's Chamber of Industry and Commerce, has voiced apprehensions about the growing number of individuals falling victim to crimes facilitated through social media transactions. Expressing his unease about the escalating criminal activity in and around the Shoguna's area, Maharaj highlighted that recent murders in the borough have underscored residents' perceptions that criminals operate with little fear of the law. Speaking at the launch of the Better Business TT initiative at the Signature Hall in Montrose, Shogunas, Maharaj pointed out that, despite authorities publicly stating a reduction in crime in the borough, the reality for residents is quite different. He expressed skepticism about the measurement methods used and emphasized that residents continue to live in fear for their personal safety. In regional news, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has underscored that his government has not made any commitments mandating legislative altercations regarding issues such as same-sex marriage or transgender rights. Gonsalves clarified, stating, "There is no commitment for us to change our laws in relation to any of these matters," acknowledging the presence of critics who have made overstated claims about the contents of the agreement signed by St. Vincent and other nations from Africa, the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the European Union in Samoa. Gonsalves has addressed these concerns that have been brought to his attention. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing nowadays.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
On today's episode of What's Up Doc, we're discussing varicose veins. Did you know that 80% of adults between the ages of 18 to 80 will develop some form of venous disease in their lifetime, and that 1 in 4 persons will develop significant varicose veins? Varicose veins is a serious medical condition that causes significant pain and debility. It is a progressive disease, and if left untreated, can develop into painful, weeping venous ulcers around the ankle. These affect a person's ability to weight bear and walk. Life is movement, and if we hold this to be true, then varicose veins affects lives. Joining us today to share his knowledge and expertise on varicose veins is Dr. Fidel Rampasad, consultant, vascular and interventional radiologist, and lecturer in radiology at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus.
On today's Vitaminutes, we discuss pantothenic acid or vitamin B5. Vitamin B5 is naturally present in foods and is used to make coenzyme A, also known as CoA, a chemical compound that helps enzymes to break down and build fatty acids as well as perform other metabolic functions. Vitamin B5 is found in almost all plant and animal foods to some degree. Because the vitamin is found in all living cells, The best sources of vitamin B5 are fortified cereals, organ meats such as liver and kidney, beef, chicken breast, mushrooms, avocado, nuts, seeds, dairy milk, yogurt, potatoes, eggs, brown rice, oats, and broccoli. And that was today's Vitaminutes.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
If a person has varicose veins or has any form of valvular insufficiency, how would they present? What should they be looking out for?
Well, yeah, it's a good idea for everyone to look at their legs and see what they look like. Because there are many different conditions that can affect the legs. Varicose veins in particular, you might see little prominent veins, tubular veins. Sometimes they can get very enlarged. Sometimes you can see little fine veins, they call them spider veins. And as the disease spectrum progresses, these veins might get a little bit tender, they get more swollen, you might see some swelling in the ankles, some discoloration of the skin. And the legs feel heavy and tired, and you'll actually see swelling at the end of the day. And when you go to bed at night, by the time you get up in the morning, it's good. And this is primarily occurs in patients who stand a lot during the day. And then things progress. If left unchecked, you can start to develop more pain, more swelling. Then the skin starts to actually break down, and you get what people call a sore or ulcer forming. And that can be very, very difficult to treat. And sometimes it might respond to antibiotics, get better, and then it comes back again. And the typical symptom that is a severe symptom, worrying symptom, is when you get the thinning of the level of the ankles. So they call it an inverted champagne bottle. So it looks like an upside-down champagne bottle. So that's a severe form of varicose vein, venous insufficiency disease.
All right. Who is at risk of getting it? Is it everybody, or certain people are at increased risk of developing varicose veins and even venous disease?
Yeah, sure. So you might expect it to be in certain populations, and sometimes when you ask the patient the question, they will say, oh, well, my mom had it, my dad had it, my sister has it. So it runs in families, and some of them pop up spontaneously, like, for example, during pregnancy. And as you get older, the veins lose their elasticity, so you get more varicose veins in an older population.
Right.
And sometimes it can be secondary to congenital problems, like there's an interesting syndrome called May-Turner syndrome, where you get the symptoms on the left side. So that's rare and unusual. It can be sometimes related to masses within the pelvis, so fibroids compressing the veins, etc., which is a common cause here. Mm-hmm. So it's important to sort of know who is predisposed and be able to diagnose underlying causes, because it doesn't make sense you address varicose veins, the next thing you have a bigger problem going on higher up in the body.
Correct. Would you say also somebody who leads a sedentary lifestyle not exercising regularly, does that have an impact on the condition of your legs?
Yes, because I think, well, if you believe in evolution and how humans evolved, we weren't initially erect. So that the way that the veins take the blood back to the body, there are little valves that prevent the blood from going backwards. So as you move, the muscle carries the blood back up to the heart. And in patients who have sedentary lifestyles, the muscles are not as efficient as they should be. And yeah, I think that predisposes to varicose veins as well.
You think obesity as well then?
Yes, yes, definitely. But sometimes you do see very slim patients like yourself who have varicose veins. So it's not just obesity. So I've seen a lot of, especially tall people, and you just see this really, really bad varicose veins. So obesity is a factor too, but you can also get it in slim people.
Do you see a predilection of an increased incidence of women having varicose veins more than men, or is that just a myth?
No, I think it's definitely more prevalent in women. And women might tend to more present to their doctors over men, in terms of men might just ignore the problem and say that's not an issue, but generally speaking, it's more common in the female gender. It may have to do with some hormonal issue with the female hormones predisposing.
Right. You say birth control can increase your risk of developing it as well.
That is a known risk factor.
Yeah, both the injectable as well as the oral contraceptive.
Yes.
So, all right. Now, let's just say a patient has a job that requires them to stand for long periods of time. Let's say a nurse, for example, in our setting. And she's a little bit overweight. She works so hard, she doesn't have time to exercise. She has tired, heavy legs, swelling. At the end of the day, what does she do next? So she thinks that she has some form of venous disease. What can she do next?
Well, she needs to consult a physician, right? So the first port of call is usually a general practitioner. And they will examine the patient and assess, well, okay, yes, there's some varicose veins. Is it really something to take a little bit further? Or should we refer for an ultrasound? Now, some may say, well, if it's minor and there are not so much symptoms after taking a proper history, and there's some little few veins there that are prominent, the general practitioner might usually advise the patient on some certain conservative measures to follow. And if that doesn't work or that doesn't help or relieve the symptom, he might ask for an ultrasound scan. So there's a special type of ultrasound we do called Doppler ultrasound that actually looks at the way the blood flows within the venous system in the legs. So because you can see varicose veins with your eyes, you don't need an ultrasound to confirm that. But a lot of people, including doctors, don't realize that there are a lot of abnormal pathways that form when you have varicose veins, that if you don't address these abnormal pathways and these leaky valves, and you just treat the varicose veins, for example, you pull it out or you tie it off or you inject it with something, and you don't treat the underlying condition, it's going to come back in different spots, and the symptoms are going to continue and progress.
So this is why I asked you to come, and I wanted the viewers to understand why a radiologist, and specifically a vascular interventional radiologist, would be involved in varicose veins. I mean, so as radiologists, we diagnose and get to the root cause of what is causing your varicose veins. And once we've figured that out, what are the various options, treatment options that are available in Trinidad and Tobago for persons with varicose veins from mild to severe?
All right, so let's look at some of the things we could possibly find when we do an ultrasound. So an ultrasound is a modality, what we refer to as a modality or test that we use in radiology. And for the audience that may not know, a radiologist is a doctor who specializes in the use of imaging technology. So for example, X-rays, ultrasound, CT scan, MRI, right? And ultrasound is one of the most widely available modalities, and it does no harm to the body, so there's no radiation involved. And we can actually, the most common use for ultrasound might be pregnancy, so everybody knows to get an ultrasound during pregnancy. But Doppler ultrasound is a type of ultrasound that looks at blood flow. And when we look at veins, we look at in a vein, the blood is supposed to flow back to the heart. So from the foot, it's supposed to go upwards to the heart.
Against gravity.
Against gravity. And there are little valves and whatnot that prevent it from flowing back down, because gravity by nature will want to take it back down. So sometimes those valves not working properly. So the typical place it might occur, it's up by the groin and behind the knee. There are two major valves there that might not be working properly, right? But there are other little points that this venous system can become abnormal. They're called perforators. So you have blood coming in to the varicose veins from these perforators that if they're not addressed as well or diagnosed, varicose veins will continue to come and even though you're treating some of them, they might come back other spots, right? So the ultrasound looks at that. It looks at the blood flow, it looks at the leaky valves, it looks at where the varicose veins coming from so that you can plan your treatment. The ultrasound also looks at the presence of clots. So there are clots in the legs, or what they call deep vein thrombosis, that can actually predispose to varicose veins and also sort of limit the treatment options that are available, right?
Because you have to treat that DVT, exactly, as it's called.
Because that's a cause for lower limb swelling. And the varicose veins might appear because the body is trying to form alternative pathways. And next thing you know, you go and treat that, and you've left an undiagnosed DVT there, which can be life-threatening because that can break off and go to your lung. Let's say it's a huge mass within the pelvis, like an ovarian mass or a uterus that's enlarged and riddled with fibroids. And if you don't diagnose and treat that, then you're treating the varicose veins, but you've ignored a big problem up here.
The root cause.
Yeah, so that's why it's a team approach. And I wouldn't like to say that radiologists alone should do it. Of course not. We work as a team. So that's why I always believe in the port of call, because me personally, I don't, not that I don't like to, but I don't have the time to address and sit down and talk to patients at length and what were their problems and see how they, time is a limiting factor. But the general practitioner, the vascular surgeons and people like yourself, the vascular radiologists who will have the time to explore the different facets of the patient's symptoms, these are the people who should be managed. So it's a team approach. So oftentimes in the setting, the clinical setting, a doctor will suspect varicose veins, confirm it on examination, try some conservative measures, things like exercise, lose weight, wear some stockings, take some medications like Daflon, etc. And if it's not working, then they will send for an ultrasound to somebody like myself or yourself. And it's also important to know that not every ultrasound is an ultrasound, okay? Not everybody who does an ultrasound is specialized to look at and do the scan properly, right? So they might go for somewhere that says ultrasound available, and they go there and they do a scan, but it's not done.
And it's missing the boat. It just probably looks at for clots and the big picture, but not the nitty-gritty, which is where you come in. You come in terms of, as an interventional radiologist, you do what the general radiologist can't do, which is to intervene and treat the underlying or root cause. So let's say I have a patient who has severe varicose veins and severe valvular incompetence of that valve you're talking about at the groin or the back of the knee, the SFJ or the SPJ. Describe to the viewers out there, what are the treatments that you would offer at your practice, or what would you recommend in general that are available right now in the country?
So basically the problem at those are major junctions where you have these major valves. And the valve is like, I don't know if you know much about plumbing, it's like what they call a check valve, right? So a check valve is really a valve in a pipe that only allows the water to flow in a certain way. It's not going to flow backwards. So once the water passes that check valve, it's not going to come back, right? So the problem with varicose veins is that, remember I said it's supposed to flow up to the heart, right? That valve is not working. So blood is flowing back down. So when you stand up, it's going back down. It's going through the valve. The valve is leaky, right? Now, one will say, well, can't you fix the valve? No, that valve is not amenable to being fixed, right? So you have to take it out. In other words, when I say take it out, I don't mean surgically, although that's how they started treating it. But you have to eliminate that problem by sealing off that vessel.
And how do you close it off? How do you seal it off?
Right, so initially there's something they used to call a high thigh ligation. The surgeon used to go, as general anesthetic, go and cut down to that area and just take a suture and tie off the vessel.
And what do you do now? What is available now?
So now we can easily use ultrasound to find the vessel, and we go into the vessel with a little wire, and then we use something called a radiofrequency element. So it's a little probe like around this long. It has a heating element, like those hot plates that you hot up little bologna and thing on, right? It's very similar to that. It heats it up to 100 degrees, so it actually burns it off on the inside.
And the patient doesn't feel any pain, so this is a relatively non-invasive same-day procedure that is available for the treatment, and it's definitive treatment, correct?
Yeah,
of varicose veins.
It's actually better than surgery.
Yeah.
Researchers show that over many times. Because when you do surgery, you're just treating that spot. Because remember, you're not going to cut down your leg, right? You're just tying up the vessel there. But this thing treats the whole vessel. So we usually come down by the knee there, and we send up the catheter using it. It's brilliant, right? Because you're seeing, I wouldn't say it's painless, but we have strategies to mitigate the pain. But it's very, very effective. Because remember, so
our time is out.
Right.
I'm so sorry. But before we leave, I just want you to just leave the audience with at least one piece of advice, one gold nugget that you want to leave with them in terms of varicose veins and what they can do to change their lives, to make a difference, to reduce their risk.
Yeah, as you said, it's not just a cosmetic problem. It can be indicative of something else that is going on. It can also progress into ulcers and a lot of discomfort and disability in your life. If you do have swelling, pain, you're seeing also skin darkening, check your doctor, check your radiologist, ask them to send you for a Doppler ultrasound to try to diagnose the problem so that you can manage and treat it before it gets worse.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
As you age, there is an increased risk of being diagnosed with arthritis, but younger individuals can get affected as well. When you tell them, but no, I need you to move your joints, you need to move it, otherwise it gets stiffer and it exacerbates the problem. There's that misconception that if I move it, it's more pain.
So if you're to focus on these risk factors, then to me, it will help a large portion of the population, probably prolong, I should say, the inevitable, because inevitably you will develop arthritis.
WESN.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Psyched, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former Mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
And the threats to our freedom are the European Union, mass immigration, and this terrible Islamic ideology of submission and violence.
A dark day for many of the country's residents who come from a non-Western background.
I was just telling people here that this is like my 9/11. I will never forget this evening, November 22, 2023.
Of course I'm shocked. I'm still in shock. I think my friends and family are in shock as well.
Geert Wilder's PVV party's program states the Netherlands is not an Islamic country. There should be no Islamic schools, no Qurans, no mosques, and a ban on Islamic headscarves in government buildings.
If the PVV program is implemented, the livelihood and security of Muslims will no longer be assured. That means that we as Muslims cannot live and cannot practice our prayer, our religion. We cannot pass that on to our children.
Wilder and his party have never been in government. Party leaders will meet on Friday to discuss coalition possibilities.
Well, a bit earlier this afternoon, I spoke to Roderick Rieker from Rabound University in the Netherlands, and I asked him why Wilders did so well at this election.
Yeah, that claim came as a complete surprise to everyone, because just a couple of months ago we had provincial elections where he actually lost, and he is now 4 times larger than he was just a couple of months ago. And I think 3 things happened between these 2 elections. First, the current government resigned over the issue of immigration, which put his big issue really at the forefront of Dutch politics again. Second, the center-right VVD lifted their ban on his party. They said they would consider governing with him again. That was for the first time in 10 years, and that made him attractive for strategic voters again. And third, in the past few days, his party was really surging in the polls, which also made him attractive to a lot of late deciders who casted their vote for strategic reasons or just on a bandwagon effect. So I think these 3 factors really explain this unprecedented victory, which is actually 1.5 times larger than he was even in the polls the day before the election.
Next to China, where hospitals in the north of the country are reporting an increase in cases of a pneumonia-like illness among children. The World Health Organization has asked Beijing for more details. Jenny Shin has this report.
Hospitals in Beijing overwhelmed with parents and children awaiting checks, as China sees clusters of pneumonia spreading in the north of the country, affecting mostly children. The surge in cases coincides with the general increase in respiratory illnesses, although the World Health Organization says it's unclear if the 2 are related.
On the 21st of November, media and ProMed reported clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children in northern China. It's unclear if these are associated with the overall increase in respiratory infections previously reported by Chinese authorities or separate events.
The spike in cases comes as China braces for its first full winter since lifting its strict COVID restrictions in December. Authorities have attributed the outbreaks to changing seasons and the circulation of known pathogens that typically affect younger children. Experts weighing in have said there's no reason to suspect the emergence of a novel virus, saying the population's immunity to common bugs has likely been reduced. The WHO, in the meantime, has asked China for additional clinical data and results from the reported outbreaks, saying it remained in close contact with scientists in the country.
Now, earlier this week, lovers of French traditions and lovers of cheese had feared the famous camembert would lose its distinctive wood packaging amid a recycling drive by the European Union. The EU wants all packaging in the EU to be recyclable by 2030, but after some determined lobbying by French MEPs, it was agreed that camembert would be exempt. Verica Bahel has the story.
It's the French cheese, instantly recognisable for its soft texture, pungent smell and iconic round container. And European Union legislators ensured Wednesday that the camembert will remain in its box, a move that pleases the French.
Our French cheeses are loved all over the world, but who can imagine a camembert or a mandar without its wooden strapping? Packaging them in plastic would be a sensory aberration. Europe must know how to protect the environment, but never to the detriment of the specific characteristics of its member states or against their prosperity.
France had been pushing for the camembert's wooden box to be considered a cultural exception, after the EU began plans to crack down on packaging regulations aimed at making all packaging in the bloc recyclable by 2030. In a vote, MEPs approved the report, with targets including banning plastic carrier bags, recycling single-use packaging formats such as hotel toiletries, as well as forever chemicals in food contact containers. Those in favour of the initiative argued the current practices simply aren't enough.
We cannot recycle our way out of this mess. If your plastic junk is swapped for cardboard junk, it is not sustainable. And if we continue to generate levels of waste at current rates, that is by definition unsustainable. So colleagues, we have to pull the brakes on our throwaway society.
The European Parliament will begin talks with national governments on the final form of the law once the European Council has adopted its position.
And that's a wrap for this news programme on France 24. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly look at stories from across the continent. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and this week, the clock is counting down towards DR Congo's general elections next month. President Felix Tshisekedi is pushing for a second term in a field of over 20 candidates, but only a few are considered frontrunners. Also, students are amongst the victims of Nigeria's rampant inflation. Some federal universities have been hit with a 300% increase in tuition fees. We take a closer look at how that is affecting students' prospects. Also, Nairobi hosted talks about plastic pollution around the world. Kenya wants to lead by example after legislation requiring producers to take responsibility for the waste they generate. But first, dozens of electoral observers headed out to DR Congo ahead of next month's general elections. Campaigning has officially kicked off. Felix Tshisekedi is running for a second term in a field of over 20 contenders, but only about 4 are considered frontrunners. Clem Waller tells us more.
They are over 20, all vying to become president of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Among the presidential hopefuls, 4 are presented as the main contenders, all with different objectives. First of all, the incumbent president, Felix Tshisekedi. At age 60, he is running for a second term. He is defending his record, underpinned by social measures such as free schooling and universal medical health care. But, according to his opponents, he has failed to achieve his objectives regarding the fight against corruption and improving the economy and national security. Then there is Martin Fayulu, the unsuccessful candidate of the 2018 presidential election. This former executive of an oil outlet is out for revenge. He and his supporters maintain he was the victor 5 years ago. Within a divided opposition, Fayulu is currently going it alone, having refused to form a common front with other opposition candidates at a conference in Pretoria last week. At 58, Moise Katumbi, former governor of Katanga, already has the support of 3 other candidates who have withdrawn from the race. Seth Kikuni, Frank Diongo, and former Prime Minister Matata Ponyo Mapon. All are calling on their supporters to vote for the leader of the Together for the Republic party. He is focusing his campaign on his record in Katanga, with the construction of roads and schools, as well as the development of agriculture. And finally, Dr. Denis Mukwege, winner of the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize. Nicknamed the man who repairs women, he is based in eastern Congo, where armed militias have long carried out attacks on civilians. He is highly critical of the government and its inability to curb the conflict that is tearing the region apart. His watchwords in this campaign: peace and the fight against corruption.
Cheikh Anta Diop University, Senegal's top higher education institution, has been closed since June, when violent political protests rocked the country over the conviction of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. The campus was evacuated because of security concerns, but students still haven't been back, and many are growing increasingly frustrated with the delay. Our team reports.
Cheikh Anta Diop University, also known as UCAD, has been closed for more than 5 months, leaving 80,000 students in limbo. The Dakar campus was shut down following an unprecedented period of political unrest in Senegal. Many students are desperate to return, including Alioune, a 5th-year medical student who is now questioning his future.
I don't know if I'll have the strength to continue with my studies next year if I lose a whole year at university, because medicine is a really demanding course. I need to do 8 or 9 years of studies as well as a specialisation. If I lose a year, will I have the strength to go on? Will I be motivated enough?
On June 1st, Senegalese opposition leader Ousmane Sonko was sentenced to 2 years in prison over a sex scandal. Some of his supporters subsequently ransacked the university, setting fire to buildings and buses. 2.7 million euros in damage was caused in one part of the campus alone. 5 months on, much of this is still visible. University authorities say they are unwilling to take any risks by reopening the campus prematurely.
For the moment, we cannot give an opening date. When there's a threat like this, you must take responsibility to ensure that it doesn't happen again. That is what the authorities have been working on since June 1st. The material damage is easy enough to fix, but we must look at the security risk.
Lecturers are maintaining a distance learning policy for the rest of the 2022-23 academic year. A reopening date is expected to be announced before November 30th.
Well, from students in Senegal to those in Nigeria who are also facing tough choices, but they're because of mounting inflation. Tuition fees for some institutions have gone up by over 300%. Both undergraduates and new students are affected, and all this against a backdrop of the country's cost of living crisis. Some fear that they won't be able to afford to stay on for their studies. Our correspondents tell us more.
Nigeria's economic crisis is ballooning the cost of education. Joshua Deyeye is one of the many public university students who now have to find new ways of financing their studies after fees were tripled.
Even when it was still 15,000 naira, some people could not still afford the fee. You know, students who are, from pocket to mouth and from mouth to pocket, so they have to go all around to get, even that 15,000 naira, a token of 15,000 naira. How much more when the fee is now about 80,000 naira plus.
The costs have jumped further and faster than many expected. There are worries that millions of students may now feel pressure to spend fewer years in expensive higher education.
I expected the increase in school fees, but I never expected it to be this much. I get the fact that the country is hard, everything is expensive, everything has doubled in prices. But as for school fees, it's kind of like tripled or even more than tripled for most of us.
The increases mean students will have to pay the equivalent of 287 euros per semester instead of the usual 31 to 91 euros. The Lagos State University claims the changes are essential as the income from the old fees was barely enough to cover its electricity bills. But the school has tried to help students hit hard by the hike in course prices. Some can now earn extra money by coaching their peers.
Even before now, we have all those provisions. What we have done is to make them better. We have what we call a work study, where a student could work for about 10 hours in a week and for 10 weeks, and we'll be earning around between 500 and 1,000 per hour, which will amount to around 100,000, between 50 and 100,000 per semester.
Although the Nigerian government still funds education, more money is needed. UNESCO recommends that the state spends 15 to 20% of its budget on education, but in Nigeria, the current figure is less than 10%.
More than 10% of babies born in South Africa suffer the effects of excessive drinking by their mother during her pregnancy. The country's rate of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is the highest in the world. Social workers are trying to do more to raise awareness of the risks amongst pregnant women, most at risk of turning to alcohol, many of whom are already living harsh lives. Take a look.
Letitia Lawrence is 27. She was diagnosed with the most severe form of fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, a term used to refer to birth defects caused by alcohol exposure during pregnancy. She works in a Cape Town factory where she labels products.
I actually wake up and get ready, and then after that I just brush my teeth, and then I'm ready, and then I'm here, and then I start working. It makes me happy and keeps me busy a lot, and yeah.
Her employer believes in creating a shared workspace for people with disabilities.
Wow, you look after those. Well, I believe that inclusion is the answer. I really think that we need to have a variety of people who work together, and people will see those with disability differently.
Mothers don't need to be heavy drinkers to cause damage to their unborn baby. FASD is detected during early childhood and varies from mild to severe.
So it's actually when the child goes into the toddler years that you can see the delay. The delay might be things like fine motor development. That's what we mostly see in South Africa. In other countries, they're reporting gross motor development. We don't see that as much, but definitely delayed in speech and language.
30% of South African families are affected by FASD, the highest rate globally. At this year's 7th Global Alcohol Policy Conference in Cape Town, campaigners urged the government to strengthen policies on alcohol and substance abuse.
For instance, if we have things like warning labels on liquor bottles, or we have point of sale warnings, which are in liquor serving establishments, it can give more information to the user, and it can not only reduce alcohol use by somebody who may be pregnant, but also by community.
Policies and knowledge about the effects of alcohol alone cannot stop a woman from drinking alcohol during pregnancy. Support from family and the community is equally important.
Well, week-long UN negotiations in Nairobi closed out without much progress on international talks towards a hoped for landmark treaty on plastic pollution. Although a draft for further negotiations was agreed, environmental campaigners say that the process was hijacked by oil-producing countries with an interest in undermining sustainability principles key to tackling the problem. Laura Berstecker has more.
As if freshly risen from the ground, large plastic hills overlook the Nairobi skyline. In the giant Dandora landfill that borders the Kenyan capital, waste continues to pile up despite the government's efforts to limit plastic consumption. Yet some measures are beginning to bear fruit. This dairy products factory recently modified its bottles to make them easier to recycle.
In 2023, we've shifted our drink yogurt packaging, our 1 liter fresh milk and 2 liter fresh milk to clear bottles, and we've gotten very positive feedback from the recyclers.
After a 2017 ban on single-use plastic bags largely fell flat, Kenyan authorities introduced new legislation in 2020 requiring producers to take responsibility for the waste that they generate. And while the measure hasn't been enough to fully curb plastic pollution, recyclers say mentalities are beginning to change.
Clear PET, is a better devil to live with because we can easily be able to fully recycle it and get it back, into the market. Having these producers take a bit of responsibility gives us assurance that we have got a job to go to.
Earlier this week, government delegations gathered in Nairobi to discuss a landmark international treaty against plastic pollution. As they continue to hammer out the details, activists are calling for tangible commitments to reduce global plastic production by 75% over the next 20 years.
Well, that's it for Across Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Live from Paris, World News.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 48 Begonian celebrates a whopping 20 million lotto jackpot win. Opposition Senator Wade Mark calls for transparency on TNT's Dragon gas field project. Shoguna's Chamber of Commerce heads expresses concerns over rise in social media-related crimes. And in regional news, St. Vincent's Prime Minister clarifies no legislative commitments on same-sex marriages rights in international agreement. Now for the details. In a stroke of incredible luck, a resident of Trinidad and Tobago has become an instant multi-millionaire by clinching the lotto jackpot prize of $20 million. The National Lottery's Control Board shared the joyous news on social media, declaring that someone in the nation is having an exceptionally Merry Christmas with the best gift ever, a whopping lottery win. The NLCB's announcement expressed hearty congratulations to the fortunate winner, signifying a life-changing moment for the individual who struck gold in a lottery draw. The NLCB revealed that the jackpot will be reset to $2 million for the upcoming Saturday draw. Opposition Senator Wade Mark has submitted a motion to obtain information regarding the acquisition of natural gas from Venezuela's Dragon gas field and the processing of a portion of this gas supply at the Atlantic LNG plant in Trinidad and Tobago. The matter is set for discussion during the Senate session scheduled for 10 a.m. on Friday, as indicated in the order paper. In his private motion, Senator Wade Mark highlighted that the U.S. government has granted a license permitting Trinidad and Tobago to develop this Dragon field. This development involves an estimated cost of US $100 million, covering the construction of a 17-kilometer pipeline from the Dragon field, located in Venezuelan waters, to the Hibiscus platform in Trinidad and Tobago waters. The motion emphasizes, and whereas there are many other issues that remain outstanding in order to bring gas from the Dragon gas field to this country's shores. Baldat Maharaj, the head of the Shoguna's Chamber of Industry and Commerce, has voiced apprehensions about the growing number of individuals falling victim to crimes facilitated through social media transactions. Expressing his unease about the escalating criminal activity in and around the Shoguna's area, Maharaj highlighted that recent murders in the borough have underscored residents' perceptions that criminals operate with little fear of the law. Speaking at the launch of the Better Business TT initiative at the Signature Hall in Montrose, Shogunas, Maharaj pointed out that, despite authorities publicly stating a reduction in crime in the borough, the reality for residents is quite different. He expressed skepticism about the measurement methods used and emphasized that residents continue to live in fear for their personal safety. In regional news, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has underscored that his government has not made any commitments mandating legislative altercations regarding issues such as same-sex marriage or transgender rights. Gonsalves clarified, stating, "There is no commitment for us to change our laws in relation to any of these matters," acknowledging the presence of critics who have made overstated claims about the contents of the agreement signed by St. Vincent and other nations from Africa, the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the European Union in Samoa. Gonsalves has addressed these concerns that have been brought to his attention. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3, search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former Mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Chaguanas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Shifa, all the footage taken by journalists was subject to approval from the army.
This is the kitchen that they have, and if you go a little bit from this direction, you will see the room that they stay inside with beds. With beds and also the air condition. And as I told you, this helps us to find, because we understood that below the engine we'll probably find the air condition.
Along with the tunnels, the army also claims it discovered a stockpile of weapons, ammunition and explosives belonging to Hamas. It says the militant group is using the facility as a human shield.
Hamas using hospitals as terror infrastructures. Hospitals that has the world's immunity, the WHO organization, the UN. It has world's immunity.
Hamas has denied the accusations. Doctors at the Al-Shifa hospital have also rebutted the allegations, arguing that thousands of patients, medical personnel and civilians were sheltering there. They were forced to leave after Israeli soldiers raided the facility last week. Hamas says the army's targeting of civilian centers like Al-Shifa makes Israel guilty of committing war crimes.
German police have carried out raids in 4 states this morning following a ban on the activities of Hamas, as well as the Samidun group. According to the Interior Ministry in Berlin, there are around 450 members of Hamas in the country.
A quiet street in Berlin, waking up to raids by police officers. They were searching for evidence and assets linked to alleged members and supporters of Hamas, as well as the Palestinian advocacy network Samidun. The German Interior Minister said the raids aimed to further investigate the two groups.
We're continuing our consistent action against radical Islamists. Islamists and anti-Semites cannot and must not feel safe anywhere here.
It's unclear what exactly was uncovered during the raids, which started at 6 a.m. A total of 15 properties were searched, most of them in Berlin. The raids come following a formal ban on the two organizations issued in early November. Germany had already designated Hamas as a terrorist group. And following Hamas's October 7 operation in southern Israel, the German authorities announced they would also crack down on Samidun. This after the group, which translates to steadfast in Arabic, posted photos on Instagram showing pro-Palestinian activists distributing pastries in the streets of Berlin in celebration of Hamas's Al-Aqsa flood operation. The group has expressed its outrage at the ban, which it said was seeking to criminalize speaking out against the current war, organizing, and expressing support for the Palestinians.
Carolina Bolle with that report. Well, Nick Spicer is our correspondent in Berlin. He joined us earlier with a little more on just why these raids have been carried out.
There's been a big spike in anti-Semitic incidents, people painting blue stars of David on walls here in Berlin, Molotov cocktails being thrown against the door of a synagogue. Even the mayor of Neukölln, which is the Berlin neighborhood where Hamidun was handing out sweets, said he thought it might not be a good idea for Jewish men to go out wearing the kippah. They might be in danger. And the organisms that actually quantify the amount of anti-Semitic incidents says there has been a big spike. And this all happened on the 85th, well, around the time of the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht, when Nazis burned down synagogues, beat up Jewish shop owners, all kinds of, ordinary people, and began sending off people to concentration camps. And it was really seen as a prelude to the Holocaust. So the timing of all this has really, really struck the Jewish community in Germany by and large with fear, and the government, which has as its raison d'etre, as Chancellor Olaf Scholz said after the October 7th attack, the defense of Israel has really, really taken it upon itself to be seen as addressing those fears.
Nick Spicer in Berlin. A man is in police custody after allegedly stabbing 3 children and 2 adults. It happened in Dublin. Irish police say they were called to a school in Parnell Square East, which is a busy part of the Irish capital. The victims were all taken to hospital. A woman and a young girl are seriously wounded. We'll bring you more as we get it. Anti-migrant politician Geert Wilders urged his political rivals to find common ground to govern the country. This after a bombshell election win that reverberates around the Netherlands and Europe. Wilders and his PVV, or Freedom Party, won 37 seats in Parliament. That's more than doubling his share from the last election and outstripping his opponents. So, the Netherlands has taken a sharp turn towards the far right.
With his aggressive anti-immigration and anti-Islam rhetoric, Geert Wilders is set to shake up Dutch politics. The veteran firebrand placed anti-Islam policies at the core of his party, PVV, founded in 2004. Wilders has since vowed to stop a, quote, Islamic invasion, has held competitions for cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, and has been convicted for insulting Moroccans.
Brussels wants to inundate us with third world immigrants, mostly from Islamic countries. It wants to distribute these immigrants all over the European Union. And that, my friends, will be a disaster.
A ban on mosques, Islamic schools, Qurans and headscarves from government buildings are among the proposals on his PVV manifesto. But he sought to tone down his anti-Islamic rhetoric in the run-up to the election. Immigration was a key theme of the campaign after the previous government collapsed in a disagreement over asylum rules, with Wilders taking a hardline stance. The PVV has pledged to deport illegal immigrants and proposes a freeze on asylum.
And the hope
is that people get their country back, that we make sure that the Netherlands is for the Dutch again, that we will limit the asylum tsunami and migration.
A self-proclaimed fan of Hungary's Viktor Orbán, Wilders is a staunch Eurosceptic and wants to hold a binding referendum to leave the EU. He has called for the Netherlands to significantly reduce its payments to Brussels and to block the entrance of any new members. Unlike many other European leaders, Wilders wants to stop arming Ukraine, saying the Netherlands needs the weapons to defend itself.
And I remember when they said it couldn't happen, but it has. Wilders, the most popular politician, it seems, in Netherlands today. Let's discuss why this has happened and what it could mean. Two guests to do that for you. Armin Georgian, our Europe specialist, it has to be said. I mean, just so used to seeing Armin in Brussels. It's great to see you in the studio, sir. Armin Georgian is here in the studio. Joining us by means of Skype from London is Stijn van Kessel, who's Associate Professor in European Politics at Queen Mary's. Thank you both for being with us. Armin, I'll start with you if that's okay. Give us some reaction across Europe. What's the kind of reaction been to this? It's been described as a bombshell victory, but of course many people saw this coming. What's the reaction been?
Well, the more mainstream political forces are being quite cautious because, of course, we don't know exactly what the government is going to be. We don't know if Geert Wilders is going to be Prime Minister or not. So they're being pretty circumspect about the whole thing. As you can imagine, Mark, though, the far-right parties in Europe are absolutely thrilled about this. They see this as another sort of link in the chain, another win that they can notch up across the European continent. Here in France, Marine Le Pen of the National Rally said congratulations to Geert Wilders for a spectacular performance, which confirms the growing support for the defense of national identities. So that's very much the thing that you hear from, for example, Matteo Salvini of the League in Italy, from Spain's Vox party, which is also talking about defense of borders in relation to this win. And, of course, Viktor Orbán, the Hungarian Prime Minister, who says that the winds of change are here. And very close echo of that from the German far right, the AfD on X, formerly Twitter, which again uses that idea of change. Citizens want political change everywhere in Europe, according to the AfD.
Indeed, as long as it's their political change that is coming, I think that's the rider one needs to put on that kind of remark. You've raised the alarm for me with what you've just told me, so I'm going to risk being called alarmist and bring in Stijn van Kessel with this question. Stijn, thanks for being with us. Is what we're seeing here some kind of an echo of what happened in 1930? Now, God forbid that it ends up in a big war and lots of oppression of lots of people, but in terms of the vocabulary, in terms of the movement, there is an echo. Would you agree?
I would not be quite as alarmist, I would say. But yeah, of course, our thoughts kind of go back to that period and sort of comparing the rise of these populist radical right parties, as we tend to call them, to the rise of fascism in the 30s. I think we have to be rather careful because the difference is that these parties, they at least claim to protect popular sovereignty. So they're not anti-democratic as such. However, they see for themselves a democracy that's largely based on a leading culture. So in a way, they do tend to exclude certain people from who they see as the people that they appeal to. So, as many scholars have also argued, their discourse is not necessarily in line with liberal democratic principles, but to call them fascist and anti-democratic would go a bit far.
It's a bit tricky, isn't it, Stim? Because if you're a Muslim, if you're a homosexual, if you're a woman who wants an abortion, one could find that things change for you under such kind of thinking.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, and that is also why I think it's right to see these parties as a potential threat to liberal democracy, because they exclude certain minorities from the group that they consider to be the people that they appeal to. And some have said that's actually a threat to democracy and not just only liberal democracy. So there is indeed a danger if you abide by liberal democratic values to be observed by the rise of these parties. Yes, certainly. Certainly if you're part of the minorities that are at the receiving end of their discourse and their criticism and what they consider to be the problem, for instance, Islamization. And yeah, certainly.
Indeed, it's what they consider to be the problem, and then it's selling that kind of policy to the people and making them vote for it. This is the interesting thing that goes on in people's heads, I think. Stian, bear with us. I'll bring Armin Georgian back in, of course. Armin, you've spent many of the past months in Brussels observing what people are saying, listening to things in the corridors of power there. Did people see this coming?
I don't get the impression that they saw Geert Wilders actually winning. I mean, but, you know, the people that I speak to in Brussels, they'll probably be like most of us, following, like people in this newsroom, you know, following polls that they see, which didn't give Geert Wilders such a big lead on the night that he actually got in the end. But, you know, the fact is that a lot of these, I don't know how we want to call them, certainly populist parties, what they do is just before an election, they sort of tone down some of their most controversial rhetoric.
Because Wilders tried to recast himself as a centrist, didn't he?
Well, a little bit. He sort of went a little bit more to the centre, let's say. I mean, he dropped this stuff about getting rid of mosques or banning the Quran and so on. And I was struck by that because I worked a lot on the recent election in Slovakia where Robert Fico came back to power, and he did something a little bit similar in that he kind of went easy on the culture wars before the election, and he really drilled down on the, you know, cost of living crisis, all these pocketbook issues, which to some extent Geert Wilders did as well. And so when you get a party that drops its most kind of outlandish rhetoric in a sense, and kind of goes more along the line of, we've got to do something about immigration, it's not being controlled, mainstream parties are not dealing with this issue, they're not giving voters a democratic choice on whether their societies are going to be changed culturally, you know, they adopt that kind of slightly more, I wouldn't say mainstream, but more recognizable rhetoric, if you will, that then does seem to work on voters, or enough voters for them to gain more votes.
And it is depressing that you get a situation where you can say to people who maybe feel that their lives aren't working the way that they would like them to work, well, it isn't your fault, it's the fault of someone who's come to this country, who doesn't share the same colour skin as you, who's maybe taking your job. And this is a whole premise which is, we see replicated in many countries, which doesn't actually hold water, because if you analyse it, it's total nonsense.
Well, the thing is also we shouldn't, I think we're sort of giving the impression in this segment a bit, Mark, that there's this sort of inexorable rise of these kinds of parties. But, you know, as you know, we were doing lives together when I was in Poland, and that was a big shock, but completely the opposite way. So after, you know, Law and Justice, which has been in power in Poland for 8 years, seen, I suppose, by kind of centrist Western European politicians as a classically populist, sort of anti-Brussels,
I mean, certainly in terms of anti-abortion was one of the main policies.
And suddenly the big backlash against them, the pro-European opposition surges and actually gets enough votes to make an alliance which could still form the next government. So it's not all going in one direction.
I take your point. You're reining me in, and I respect you, Armin, a great deal. Let's bring our guest in, because he's listening patiently, and I know he's got lots to say. Stian van Kessel, Associate Professor of European Politics at Queen Mary's. Stian, Wilders, why did it work? What did people like? What were they listening for? What do you think made them vote for him? What was the issue, do you think?
I mean, it's the same issues that they have always voted, or the reasons why they voted for him. So immigration is the key issue. It's also stance on the cost of living crisis. So he sort of claims to protect the native, hardworking people versus the people, the foreigners who are not so deserving in his idea. Healthcare was also an important issue for his voters, but immigration is a core issue for all populist radical right parties. So again, that has been a central issue. And I would like to actually address one point why he was so successful in this election, which came, I admit, as a shock also to me and to everyone. Like, no one expected that his win would be quite so big. It was expected that he would remain one of the largest parties in the Netherlands, as he has been for years. But one thing that really opened the door for him was the leader of the Liberal Party, the Conservative Liberal Party, Zielgus, so the follow-up person from Mark Rutte, who is the outgoing prime minister. She opened the door for negotiations for a coalition agreement to form a government, and she never quite closed that door. So a lot of voters who care ultimately about who gets into government thought that Wilders was a much more attractive choice, because they thought this party has a real shot of ending up in government. The other reason is that Zielgus and the VVD made immigration a key issue of their campaign as well. And what research points out time and time again, that is a dangerous strategy for the center-right, because ultimately it legitimizes the position of the radical right. And on balance, it tends to be the radical right that benefits from this if the issue is high on the agenda. So that plays a very important role, the role of party competition in explaining this large success for the populist radical right.
Indeed, the hangover of the migrant crisis perhaps is what we're still feeling. Stian, it's easy to be in opposition. It's easy to say, I will give you this, I will give you that, I will solve all your problems. But if Wilders becomes leader of the Netherlands, he now has to do that. Do you think he has the credentials and the policies to deliver? I suppose that's the bread and butter question, isn't it?
It is, yeah, I never imagined that he would be the largest party or would lead the party that became so large. And clearly it's his sort of initiative that's also what his potential coalition partners, VVD, the Conservative Liberals, as well as Omtzigt, so kind of the new kid on the block, although he is a maverick, a breakaway from the Christian Democrats. So ultimately that party can be compared quite well to the old Christian Democratic Party, both parties on the center-right, generally speaking. Will he be able to lead a coalition? Does he have the personnel to do that? Clearly, it's a one-man show, this whole party, the Party for Freedom. It doesn't have members. It doesn't have a lot of personnel to sort of recruit for office. So this is the large question. Of course, it remains to be seen.
Stuart, I have to cut in because we're running towards the end of the segment. I'm very sorry, but thank you. I think the message is loud and clear. Stian van Kessel from Queen Mary's, thank you very much indeed. Thanks to Armin Georgian here in the studio. Thanks to you all for watching. Stay with us. More to come live from Paris. You're watching Live in Paris. I'm Mark Owen. These are the headlines. Hostages could start to be freed by tomorrow afternoon. Qatar says by 4 p.m. local time. That's a ceasefire then at 7 a.m. The anticipated release this morning didn't happen. Air and ground strikes by Israel, though, continued on Gaza. We'll be assessing the situation with our correspondents and our special guests. Geert Wilders, winner of the Dutch election. This latest lurch to the far right in Europe is raising concern for many, especially Muslims in the Netherlands. Meanwhile, Hungary's Viktor Orban is hailing the winds of change. Pediatric hospitals in the north of China are reporting an overwhelming number of pneumonia-like illnesses. The World Health Organization has asked China for details on this spike in cases. Locally, it's been put down to the lifting of COVID measures. Thank you very much for being with us. We understand from the latest communication from Hamas that the truce will start at 7 a.m. Friday, that's local time, 5 a.m. GMT. It's scheduled to last for 4 days. The first hostages could be free at 4 p.m. It was all anticipated this would take place this Thursday morning, but there was a last-minute glitch in negotiations that which are taking place in Qatar. Now there, a senior Mossad, that's Israel Secret Service agent, have been talking to the Hamas leadership. For the families back in Israel, this means another anxious 24 hours.
They'd been hoping for some good news. Instead, it was another day of waiting for the relatives of the hostages that are currently being held in the Gaza Strip.
For 47 days, we've been experiencing an emotional roller coaster. Today is no different. We hope at least the children will come home as fast as possible, because they're running out of time. They cannot wait any longer, nor can the elderly, or the sick, or the injured.
The truce between Israel and Hamas, which was struck on Wednesday and initially slated to come into effect on Thursday, is now expected to start on Friday morning.
The beginning of the pause will be 7 a.m. Friday, the 24th of November, and it will last, of course, as agreed, for 4 days. And the first batch of civilians to be released from Gaza will be around 4 p.m. of the same day. They will be 13 in number, all women and children, and those hostages who are from the same families will be put together within the same patch. Obviously, every day will include a number of civilians, as agreed, to total 50 within the 4 days.
In exchange, around 150 Palestinian detainees will be released. It's unclear what caused the delay, but a Palestinian official suggested it was purely logistical. Patience was also running out on Thursday in the West Bank, where many had been anticipating the release of the Palestinian detainees.
I came to Ramallah to celebrate. Unfortunately, we were all shocked by the delay of the deal. I don't know what happened.
Many of the Palestinians who are expected to be released are being detained without trial over suspected attempted stabbings, stone throwing, or having contacts with what the Israeli authorities consider to be hostile organizations.
50 hostages coming out over the next 4 days was what we were told. 150 Palestinian prisoners going in the opposite direction. It's all on hold. We're waiting for things to be really confirmed. Though Hamas saying, Douglas, I'll bring you in here, our international affairs commentator, Hamas saying this is going to happen tomorrow. Can we believe this is going to happen? We can't be sure until we actually see it, can we?
Well, the families are sure hoping, right? They've already been waiting 24 hours more than they had anticipated originally. And the very fact that we've had that first 24-hour delay, people woke up this morning thinking, oh, this morning the wheels are going to start turning, and that didn't happen. So already the fact we've had this 24-hour delay sort of underlines just how fragile this deal is, just how much everything sort of depends on literally nursing every aspect of this right down to the wire. And even tonight, as you just mentioned, there are still security agents, Mossad agents, reportedly staying behind in Qatar. Fears, you walk away for a moment from that negotiating table where these final details are being hammered out, and there's a sense that it could all just sort of come crumbling down. Now, as of now, you're right. There is going to be a truce tomorrow morning, followed several hours later by the actual release of that first batch of hostages. But like I said, let's remember, the one word that the Israelis especially have been underlining here is that this is a temporary cessation of hostilities. This is a blip, a pause, after which the war will continue. And as I speak here tonight, the war is still on. It hasn't stopped until that truce begins temporarily. There was fighting today on the ground. There were also incoming sirens of alarms of rockets going into southern Israeli communities. There was fighting in Gaza. Bombardment of Gaza continued. So very much as we stand here talking about tomorrow's hoped-for truce kicking in, we have a war as of this hour still technically very much going on, and a war that will very much resume as of now, as of our understanding tonight, right after the 4-day period is over, unless something unexpected happens and it's working better than expected and somehow there is pressure for a prolongation.
Indeed, Benjamin Netanyahu very clear on that after the truce it resumes. Hamas's armed wing spokesperson calling for escalation of confrontation with Israel. I just sort of underline who that is.
Yeah.
It's the spokesperson of the Iz el-Din al-Qassam brigades, goes by the name of Abu Ubaida.
They set their hands on the trigger.
When that is declared, one can see how easily this kind of hostage deal could break down
the whole thing,
again.
Yeah, the whole thing is on a tripwire, Mark. This is why today, at that press conference where the Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesperson, he was pressed for details, and he kept saying, for security reasons, I really can't have the details. Now, you could speculate. Either he has a lot of details that he literally can't divulge for security reasons, as he says, or he, like the rest of us standing here asking each other questions, just don't know, because until the thing kicks in and you start to see the living real-time dynamic of how it's working, we won't know. And why we don't know right now and why we can't say with any amount of confidence it's going to work is because of the level of distrust and suspicion and skepticism. These two sides, remember, they don't speak to each other. The only reason we have this deal forthcoming is because you've had Qatar in there, and Egypt also, as an intermediary, literally midwifing this whole thing. Without Qatar there, no one would be speaking to anyone. So it is, to say it's on tenterhooks would be an understatement. But I can tell you tonight, we saw the families earlier in that report. They are obviously very much hoping. This has been an excruciating 6+ weeks for them. And even now with that initial, release, the initial batch of hostages, that will still presumably leave well over 200 hostages still in Hamas's hands. And I will just mention, there's also the Palestinian prisoners to be released as well. We still don't know the details there. Exactly how many, perhaps 150, we don't know. We don't know their names yet. We don't know the mechanics of how that's going to work, where everyone's going to be coming from, what routes they'll be taking, where they will enter. So it's a lot of question marks.
And with each release, because it's not going to happen all in one go. 50 hostages will not leave in one go. They'll come in dribs and drabs, maybe 13 first time, 10 the next day, however that will divide, we will see. But we can also see the same machinations, the same problems with each release, can't we?
With each release. And, it takes on sort of a momentum of its own, Mark, right? So you have the initial release. Let's say, fingers crossed, things go well with that release. Well being, I guess people will define well differently, but the hostages are released, they get across a border in relatively good health, they're able to be brought to hospitals, they're checked, they're reunited with their families. If things seem to be going well, and there isn't what I said earlier, that resumption of hostilities, no matter how, whatever might set it off, if that continues and you have a second release, and then a third batch and a fourth, the pressure with each day will build for an extending of that ceasefire. That is certainly the hope among the population of Palestinian civilians in Gaza who have been living under the reality of devastation and continual bombardment and literally not knowing whether they will be surviving the next minute since October 7th. So for them, even this 4-day reprieve is manna from heaven right now.
Indeed, over 14,000 civilians dead. Among that number, some 6,000 or more children. Those figures are overwhelming. And just to remind people, of course, October the 7th was when this all began with that Hamas raid on various communities on the other side of the border in southern Israel, when 1,200 lives were taken in fairly gruesome circumstances by all reports. Douglas, thank you very much indeed for that analysis of the situation. We cross our fingers for both sides that everything should go peacefully, but we wait to see how things develop. Next, the anti-migrant politician Geert Wilders is urging his political rivals to find common ground to govern the country. The country is, of course, the Netherlands. This after a bombshell election win that is reverberating around the country and around Europe. His PVV, or Freedom Party, won 37 seats in Parliament, more than doubling his share from the last election and outstripping his opponents. The Netherlands then has taken a sharp turn towards the far right. Many residents from non-Western backgrounds in the Netherlands are in shock after what has happened.
The so-called Dutch Donald Trump could now become his country's leader, winning elections based on a campaign on anti-immigration and anti-Islam polemics.
The biggest threats to our survival today and the threats to our freedom are the European Union, mass immigration, and this terrible Islamic ideology of submission and violence.
A dark day for many of the country's residents who come from a non-Western background.
I was just telling people here that this is like my 9/11. I will never forget this evening, November 22, 2023.
Of course I'm shocked. I'm still in shock. I think my friends and family are in shock as well.
Geert Wilder's PVV party's program states the Netherlands is not an Islamic country. There should be no Islamic schools, no Qurans, no mosques, and a ban on Islamic headscarves in government buildings.
If the PVV program is implemented, the livelihood and security of Muslims will no longer be assured. That means that we as Muslims cannot live and cannot practice our prayer, our religion. We cannot pass that on to our children.
Wilder and his party have never been in government. Party leaders will meet on Friday to discuss coalition possibilities.
The Pakistani government announced last month it would expel over 1 million undocumented refugees, mostly Afghan nationals. Over 400,000 Afghans have fled Pakistan and crossed the border into their home country since October the 1st. The thousands who stayed behind in Pakistan have gone underground. They say they fear for their lives if they're returned to Afghanistan, which is now, of course, run by the Islamist Taliban government. Here at France 24, Jenny Shin with this.
Ajmal has lived in Pakistan with his family for over a decade. He had a stable job working at a brick factory when one morning officials came and told him he had 2 hours to leave the country. Today he's among the hundreds of thousands crossing back into Afghanistan following the Pakistani government's announcement to expel undocumented foreigners.
The authorities only gave us 2 hours to leave the country. So we packed our belongings onto the truck and left as quickly as possible.
Most returnees have lost their livelihoods, arriving hungry at the border. And unable to find accommodation due to short notice, many are forced to sleep in tents ahead of the freezing winter. The World Food Programme is providing emergency food at border crossings, with plans to assist more than 1 million people in the coming months.
UNHCR is calling upon the government of Pakistan to halt these mass number of returns during this harsh season of winter, because the cold in Afghanistan is really deadly and it can take lives.
Islamabad announced plans to expel refugees, mostly Afghans, amid a row with Kabul over charges it harbors anti-Pakistan militants. More than 400,000 Afghans have fled Pakistan since October 1st, adding more strain to the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan following devastating earthquakes last month. The WFP says it needs roughly $27 million to provide assistance to the displaced families.
Pediatric hospitals in the north of China are reporting an overwhelming number of pneumonia-like illnesses. The World Health Organization has asked China for details on what is a spike in cases, but locally it's been put down to the lifting of COVID measures.
Hospitals in Beijing overwhelmed with parents and children awaiting checks, as China sees clusters of pneumonia spreading in the north of the country, affecting mostly children. The surge in cases coincides with the general increase in respiratory illnesses, although the World Health Organization says it's unclear if the two are related.
On the 21st of November, media and ProMed reported clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children in northern China. It's unclear if these are associated with the overall increase in respiratory infections previously reported by Chinese authorities or separate events.
The spike in cases comes as China braces for its first full winter since lifting its strict COVID restrictions in December. Authorities have attributed the outbreaks to changing seasons and the circulation of known pathogens that typically affect younger children. Experts weighing in have said there's no reason to suspect the emergence of a novel virus, saying the population's immunity to common bugs has likely been reduced. The WHO, in the meantime, has asked China for additional clinical data and results from the reported outbreaks, saying it remained in close contact with scientists in the country.
It's time to turn around to business, and for that we have Brian Quinn here in the studio. We're starting here in France with a massive investment in the pharmaceutical industry aimed at melting away the kilos. I am intrigued. Brian, tell us more.
So, Mark, President Emmanuel Macron made a special visit Thursday to the French city of Chartres. The occasion there, a 2.1 billion euro investment by Novo Nordisk. Now, the Danish pharmaceutical firm has quickly become Europe's most valuable company with a market capitalization of some 460 billion euros. Now, most of that has been driven by rapid growth in the use of Novo Nordisk's anti-diabetes drug Wegovy as a weight loss treatment. Obesity rates around the world have tripled since 1975. Goldman Sachs estimates that the global market for anti-obesity medications could rocket from $6 billion a year now up to $100 billion annually by 2030. The new investment will see Novo Nordisk double the size of its French facility, adding 500 jobs. The government of President Emmanuel Macron has been keen to attract pharmaceutical production back to France after recent drug shortages. Here's Macron.
We're fighting a battle which is essential for the country, full employment and reindustrialization, because France had found itself in a situation, and this is ongoing, of a country that had deindustrialized much more than its neighbors. We've lost more industrial sites than many of our big neighbors, and we've lost more jobs as well.
Next, the biggest quarter for travel and retail is kicking off in the world's #1 economy as Thanksgiving marks the official start of the U.S. holiday season. This Thanksgiving, American wallets are getting a break with both flights and gasoline considerably cheaper than last year. Meanwhile, retailers are already in the midst of Black Friday deals as consumer confidence remains high. Oliver Ferry reports.
The great movement of people is in full swing. Americans are hitting the rails, the skies and the road to visit family and friends for the long Thanksgiving weekend. It's set to be the busiest holiday season since before the COVID-19 pandemic, leaving many travellers extra prepared.
On the news, everybody's saying, get there several hours before, and so I heeded that advice and then just kind of sitting there for a while until my flight took off, but better safe than sorry, so it was fine.
This year will see 2.7 million flights, rising to a record 2.9 million on Sunday, and 750,000 train journeys, in addition to millions of car trips. In all, 55.4 million people will travel 50 miles or more. Airlines say they're ready, with no signs yet of massive disruptions like last year's scheduling breakdown at Southwest Airlines that stranded millions of passengers, and travellers are getting a deal. Airfares this year are 14% lower than a year ago, while petrol is also down 35 cents per gallon cheaper than last Thanksgiving. But while there might be some savings, inflation is also biting.
Yeah, I think it's always a concern. One, the cost of travel. Two, things are more expensive than they used to be. Your dollar doesn't stretch nearly as wide as it once was. But I do feel like things are slowly but surely getting better and back to what they were before the pandemic.
For retailers, it's the beginning of the busiest period of the year, with Black Friday sales already started. Record sales are expected this year, exceeding last year's figures of $9.1 billion, as consumer confidence remains buoyant, despite those higher prices.
Let's get a check on the day's trading action. Now, Wall Street is closed on Thursday for the Thanksgiving holiday. Here in Europe, a day of some muted gains. The energy sector recovering a bit from Wednesday's sell-off, despite a continued fall in crude oil prices, as OPEC delays its next policy meeting by nearly a week amid squabbling amongst member states. New survey data shows employment in the Eurozone falling for the first time in 3 years amid an ongoing decline in business activity. The FTSE, the CAC 40 here in Paris, and the DAX in Frankfurt, though, all ending the day up around 0.25%. Finally, for business here in France, Black Friday promotions have gradually caught on over the years, with an estimated 70% of the population participating, as of last year at least. In years past, the phenomenon has been met with resistance from small retailers upset at the growing dominance of e-commerce giants like Amazon. It's now, though, facing a new detractor, the government's own Agency for Ecological Transition, known as ADEME. The agency has launched an ad campaign urging shoppers to stop buying new merchandise and instead choose recycled or reconditioned items. That has not gone over well with the French retail lobby groups like the Alliance for Commerce, the Textiles Industry Union, or the Fashion and Clothing Industry Union. It's caused a minor spat, we can say, within the government, with Ecological Transition Minister Christophe Béchu refusing to pull the ads, while Finance Minister, who we see there, Bruno Le Maire, calling them clumsy. Here's Bruno Le Maire.
I don't think it's very kind to shopkeepers to make fun of their jobs, even indirectly. Secondly, it's clumsy towards commerce, especially physical commerce. When you're looking at town centers today, clothing stores and big brands like Camailleux are struggling. So I think it's not very smooth.
So a little push and pull there between the commerce desires of the finance ministry and the climate necessity of the green transition.
There's a fact, though. We all have too much stuff, don't we?
I know, and you keep buying new stuff.
How many suits can you wear? How many ties can you wear? How many cars can you drive?
I'm trying to find out.
There you go. Prime of the business. Let's take that one over to Leo. If you think about all the football teams and rugby teams and sports teams that change their kit every year, and it's 3 kits, and it all goes into marketing. It's all about getting money out of people, isn't it? Which some might say is immoral, or some might say it's just choice. Anyway, let's talk sport on the pitch. We're getting closer to knowing what the lineup will be for next summer's European Championships, taking place in Germany.
In Germany, indeed, Markham. The draw for the playoff to determine the final 3 teams took place in Nyon in Switzerland today. And the way it works is that they are 3 paths drawn, with the winner of each path qualifying for the tournament, which is, of course, in Germany, as you say, next year, Mark. Path A will see Poland play Estonia and Wales take on Finland in the semi-finals. Israel will face Iceland and Ukraine will travel to Bosnia in Path B. And Path C will have Georgia hosting Luxembourg and Greece playing Kazakhstan. Interestingly, the final section has 3 sides that have never qualified for a major tournament before, Greece being the odd one out. Speaking after the draw, Wales manager Rob Page said that his side have great momentum going into their fixture.
Well, I said at the end of the game against Turkey that it'd be nice if we had the playoffs coming up in a couple of weeks, because we have got that momentum at the minute with 6 unbeaten. What it does do now, it gives us an opportunity to maybe influence some of our players that aren't playing week in, week out in January in the window to go and play some games to get us in an even better place then from a physical point of view come March.
It's 246 days until the Olympics get underway right here in Paris, and despite it being well under a year to go, the city's mayor has said that Paris' transport system will not be ready. This is an excerpt from Hidalgo's interview with a news show here in France, where she says there will be places where public transport will not be ready because there will not be enough trains and they won't be frequent enough. Transport Minister Clément Beaune has hit back at the comments on social media, claiming that Hidalgo is not present at any meetings and lacks a sense of seriousness and respect for public servants as well as Parisians. Well, let's cross stateside for some basketball action now, where the Dallas Mavericks survived the scare to beat the LA Lakers 104 points to 101 on Wednesday night. The Mavs were up by as much as 20 points at one stage, but the Lakers, led by 26 from LeBron James, staged a comeback to take the lead with less than a minute to go. Up stepped Kyrie Irving, who had 28 points on the night, hitting a go-ahead 3 to win the game for the Mavericks. After the victory, Dallas coach Jason Kidd talked about the luxury of having 2 world-class players in Irving and Luka Doncic.
Yeah, when you have quarterbacks like, Luka and Kai, the trust is high. Not taking a timeout to play it out. I believe we're going to get a great look. It's up to, a lot of times it's not going to be Luka or Kai that's going to, a lot of times they're going to get double teamed, but Luka gets double teamed and he makes a heck of a pass to Kai. Kai does what he does. He's in no panic, catches and shoots the ball and makes a big shot for us to win.
Well, the Formula One season comes to an end this weekend with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Red Bull's Max Verstappen has dominated the season, winning 18 out of 21 races. Ahead of the weekend's action, Red Bull boss Christian Horner has stoked the fire between his team and Mercedes, claiming that star driver Lewis Hamilton made an approach in an attempt to switch between the rivals. The 7-time world champion has denied the claim and said that it was Horner who contacted him over a meeting, not the other way around.
I've not approached Christian. I haven't spoken to Christian for years. And no one from my team has, I've checked with everyone, no one from my team has reached out to him. However, he had reached out to me earlier in the year about meeting up at the end of the season. And I was like, hope you're well, wish you all the best, and congratulations on an amazing season so far, and I hope that I'm able to compete with you in the near future. And so, yeah.
We finish with some tennis action as Great Britain take on Serbia in the Davis Cup quarter-finals this evening. Jack Draper has just begun his match against Miomir Kecmanovic, but all eyes will be, of course, on the world number 1, Novak Djokovic, who takes on Cameron Norrie in tonight's second